The crack in my life started with a whisper, not a bang. I was 9 when my father, Henry Keller, sat me down on our beige living room sofa in our perfectly bland Westchester Colonial. The air smelled of lemon pledge and impending doom. "Sweetheart," he began, his voice too careful, "your mom and we think it's best if we live apart for a while." My mother, Lily, was standing by the fireplace, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her pieces together. She wasn't crying. She looked hollowed out. "We both love you so much. Katie Bear," she said, the old nickname sounding brittle. I just stared at the geometric pattern on the rug. I'd heard the fights, the hissed accusations about money, about time, about a woman named Diane from my father's office. The whisper had been building for months. The bang came 6 months later. My father married Diane, and Diane came with a ready-made accessory. Her daughter, Chloe, who was my age but seemed to inhabit a different, sparklier planet. They moved into the house. Lily moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Queens, taking a job as a teaching assistant at a preschool. The divorce settlement, my father muttered, was crippling. My room, the one with the lavender walls and the window seat, became Chloe's room because it gets the best light, and she needs a creative space. I was relocated to the smaller guest room that smelled like old books and neglect. My first night there, Diane smoothed her designer skirt and knelt before me. She smelled like expensive perfume and something metallic. "Now, Kate," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We're a family, a fresh start. Chloe is so excited to have a sister. We'll have so much fun." Chloe, peeking from behind her, offered a simpering smile that vanished the second Diane looked away. The fun started immediately. "Kate, be a dear and clear the table. Chloe has violin practice. Kate, your laundry is piling up. Chloe needs help picking an outfit for her play date. Katie, sweetie." Diane was the only one who called me that, and it felt like a lie. Chloe's struggling with her math. "You're good with numbers. Do her homework for her. Would you? It's what sisters do." I tried talking to my father. He'd come home late, his tie loose, the scent of scotch clinging to him. "Dad, Diane made me do all the dishes again. And Chloe just." "Kate," he'd sigh, rubbing his temples, "don't be difficult. Diane is trying very hard to make this work. Adjust. Be grateful for the stability." Grateful. The word curdled in my stomach. The stability of being Cinderella without the hope of a fairy godmother. The only light came on Saturdays, when Lily would make the long subway and train ride to pick me up. We couldn't afford movies or restaurants. We'd walk in the park, or she'd make us grilled cheese sandwiches in her tiny, sunlit kitchen. She'd ask about school, really listen, and her hands, though chapped from cleaning products, were always gentle on my hair. "Mom, why did you leave?" I asked her once, clutching a mug of too sweet hot chocolate. She looked out her window at the fire escape, "Because staying was making me small and bitter. I didn't want you to grow up thinking that's what love looks like." She turned to me, her eyes fierce. "You listen to me, Catherine Marie Keller. You are smart. You are strong. This is just a chapter. You're going to write your own story, a big, beautiful one, and you're not going to need a prince to do it." She'd slip a $20 bill into my coat pocket when I wasn't looking. "For books," she'd say, "or for a treat with your friends." Though I had no friends at my new school, I knew that $20 meant she'd eat pasta with butter for a week. That knowledge was a coal in my chest, burning, fueling something harder than sadness. I took her words as my blueprint. I stopped complaining. I did Chloe's homework, but I made subtle, correctable mistakes. I did the dishes, but I listened to educational podcasts on my headphones. I became a ghost in their happy family tableau, silent, observant, and quietly, ferociously building an escape plan. School was my weapon. I aced every test. I joined the debate team, sharpening my words into blades. I got a perfect SAT score. When college acceptance letters came, I had my pick. I chose Wharton, as far from Westchester as I could get without leaving the country. The scholarship covered tuition. Lily's secret 20s and my summer waitressing tips were stashed for everything else. The night before I left, Diane staged a family dinner. Chloe, heading to a pricey but middling private college, prattled about sororities. My father talked about the alumni network. Diane patted my hand. We're so proud of you. Katie, Wharton, though I hear it's terribly cutthroat. All that pressure. Chloe's school has a much more supportive, well-rounded environment. I looked at her hand on mine, her perfectly manicured nails. I didn't pull away. I just met her eyes. I thrive under pressure. Diane, it's how you make diamonds, isn't it? I said it sweetly. Her smile flickered. At Wharton, and later on Wall Street, I weaponized the lessons Diane unknowingly taught me. How to read a room, how to spot weakness, how to perform a role, and how to endure. I learned to wear my ambition not as a flaw, but as armor. I worked 90-hour weeks. I outthought, out-hustled, and outlasted the boys' club. I landed a junior analyst position at Thorne Company, the kind of old money, white shoe investment firm whose name on a resume was a golden ticket. My boss was Ethan Thorne, the heir apparent. He was in his early 30s, with a mind like a scalpel and a demeanor so cool it could frost glass. He was infamous for his brutal standards and zero tolerance for idiocy. For a year, I was a ghost again, but a silent, efficient ghost who delivered flawless models and preempted his questions. He acknowledged my work with grunts, or, on a good day, a curt adequate. The turning point was the Atherton deal. A rival firm was circling one of our key portfolio companies, using underhanded tactics. The team was stumped. I worked for 72 hours straight, cross-referencing SEC filings, obscure trade publications, and social media trails of the rival firm's key players. I found it, a buried conflict of interest, a secret stake held by the rival CEO's brother-in-law. It wasn't just a vulnerability, it was a tripwire. I didn't go to my direct superior. I scheduled a 5-minute slot on Ethan's calendar. I walked into his corner office, with its view of a sliver of Central Park, and placed a single sheet of paper on his immaculate desk. The Atherton play. They're using a shell company, Veritas Holdings, to mask their insider leverage. The principal is Robert Flynn, married to the CEO's sister. Here's the paper trail. A well-placed call to the SEC's whistleblower line, anonymized but precise. We'll make them back off within 48 hours. Alternatively, we can use this to directly threaten their larger deal with Brunswick. It's a pressure point. Ethan leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. He looked at the paper, then at me. His gaze was assessing, devoid of any warmth, but glittering with a new kind of interest. Keller, sir, this is ruthless. It's effective. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It is. He stood, looking out the window. You've been here a year. You've spoken maybe 10 sentences to me, directly. All of them were the necessary, correct ones. You have no friends here. You don't gossip. You work. Why? The question threw me. I was ready for a debate on tactics, not a personality assessment. Social capital is inefficient. I'm here to build real capital. He turned, his blue eyes piercing. For what? Security. Freedom. A house with a view that isn't of a fire escape. The ability to tell anyone who's ever looked down on me, or someone I love, to go to hell. The words were out, sharper and more personal than I intended. He didn't flinch. He just nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed a hypothesis. My grandfather's trust matures when I'm 35, or when I marry, whichever comes first. The marriage clause requires a sustained public union of at least 3 years. It's meant to ensure stability in there. I said nothing, my mind racing. I am 32. I have no interest in the romantic farce. I need a partner who understands this is a transaction, someone intelligent, disciplined, and with a clear understanding of the value of a contract. Someone with the fortitude to handle my family, who are significantly more treacherous than any hostile takeover target. He paused, and someone with enough personal ambition to make the performance convincing. My heart was a hammer against my ribs. You're proposing a business arrangement. I'm proposing a merger. He corrected. 3 years. A legally binding prenuptial agreement that outlines your compensation. A 7-figure annual stipend from a dedicated trust. Vesting equity in Thorn Company that accelerates based on your continued employment performance. And my full, unwavering professional sponsorship. You will have the Keller Thorn name, the social access, and my resources to achieve your security. In return, you will be my wife in every public sense. You will attend functions, manage social expectations, and present a united front against my family. You will be discreet, loyal to the arrangement, and impeccable in your conduct. And privately, my voice was steady, a miracle. Privately, we lead separate lives. This office, this floor, is our common ground. Our residences will be adjacent but separate. The marriage will be legally unconsummated. After 3 years and a day, we file for an uncontested, amicable divorce. You walk away wealthier and more powerful than you could in a decade of grinding it out here. I walk away with control of my legacy. I thought of Lily's chapped hands, of the guest room, of Diane's smug smile, of the view from Ethan's office. Security, freedom, power, not just to walk away, but to step on the throats of those who'd tried to keep me down on my way up. What's the catch? I asked. The catch is you live in a gilded fishbowl for 3 years. The catch is my Uncle Marcus and his vulture children will pick at every flaw. The catch is you have to be better than anyone they've ever seen. The catch is, if you fail, if you embarrass me or the firm, the consequences will be severe. I will protect my investment, Kate, but I will not protect you from your own failures. I met his gaze. There was no warmth there, only calculation. It was a mirror of my own soul. I didn't need warmth. I needed a launch pad. I want the equity stake written as a path to partnership, not just vesting, specific, achievable metrics. I want a separate, irrevocable trust for my mother, Lily Keller, established upon signing, providing for her for life. And I want your assurance that when my problematic stepfamily inevitably comes sniffing around, you will back my play, however unorthodox. Ethan's eyebrows lifted slightly, the closest I'd seen to surprise. A slow, genuine smile, not warm, but appreciative, that spread across his face. Not just ambition, strategy, and leverage. Good. He extended his hand across the desk. Do we have a deal, Keller? I took his hand. His grip was firm. Cool. We have a deal. Thorn. The wedding was a spectacle at the Metropolitan Club. Diane and Chloe were in orgasmic heaven, draped in garish couture they couldn't afford, preening and dropping Ethan's name to anyone who'd listen. My father looked vaguely proud and thoroughly out of his depth. Lily was radiant in a simple, elegant silk dress she'd saved for a year to buy. She held my face before I walked down the aisle. My big story girl, she whispered, her eyes shining. Just remember who you are in here. She tapped my chest. I walked towards Ethan, who looked like a billionaire carved from ice, and felt nothing but a profound, calm certainty. This was a hostile takeover of my own life, and I was winning. The ceremony was a blur of traditional vows that felt like reading a particularly binding contract. The reception was underway. Then came the moment. The slick, hired MC beamed at the crowd. And now, let's have a warm round of applause for the wonderful parents who helped bring these two amazing people together, Mr. and Mrs. Henry Keller, and of course, the bride's mother, Lily Keller. Please join the happy couple on the dance floor for a special moment. My father stood, offering an arm to Diane. Lily, smiling softly, began to rise from her seat at the table. Chloe moved like a striking snake. In a cloud of overpowering perfume and taffeta, she stepped directly into Lily's path, placing a hand on her arm. Her voice, amplified by the hushed room, was saccharine and deadly clear. "Oh, Lily, honey," she cooed, her eyes wide with faux concern. "That's so sweet of you, but, for the photos, maybe it's best? Your dress is, well, it's just a bit simple for this setting. People will talk. Let's not have any awkwardness. Mommy." She turned, beaming at Diane. "You go up. You know how to do this, properly." The air was sucked out of the room. Every gaze swung between Chloe's glittering malice, Diane's barely concealed triumph, Lily's frozen humiliation, and my father's stunned confusion. The MC, a pro, smelled blood in the water and his survival instincts kicked in. He turned the spotlight on me, a desperate, greasy smile on his face. "Well, the ladies are making decisions. Bride, what do you think? Should we have both moms up?" All eyes landed on me. Ethan, beside me, had gone perfectly still. I saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold assessment of damage control. I saw Lily, her cheeks flushed with shame, looking like she wanted to disappear. I saw Diane, already taking a half step forward, ready to claim her prize. 3 seconds. I let the silence stretch, let the tension coil to its breaking point. I felt the old, familiar ghost of the girl in the guest room, the one who did the dishes and bit her tongue. Then I felt the steel of the woman who dissected companies for a living. I picked up the microphone from the stand. My smile was my best weapon, wide, brilliant, and utterly without warmth. "Thank you for that, Chloe," I said, my voice clear and melodic over the speakers. "You're absolutely right. Authenticity is the most important thing on a day like this." I saw the flicker of confusion in her eyes. I turned my smile to the crowd, to the sea of wealth and expectation. "So, in the spirit of authenticity, I'd like to make a slight change to the program." I paused, feeling Ethan's intense focus beside me. The wedding ceremony, the beautiful flowers, the cake, consider that portion of the evening concluded. Officially, as of this moment, a murmur rippled through the crowd. What we're really here to celebrate, I continued, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial, commanding tone, is a new partnership. The announcement, effective Monday, of my promotion to the youngest ever equity partner at Thorne Company. Gasps, sharp, interested glances from the financiers in the room. And to celebrate the formidable alliance between myself and Ethan, I gestured to him, and after a millisecond's hesitation, he gave a sharp, approving nod, which has always been, first and foremost, a merger of vision and ambition. The personal has been a delightful bonus, but the professional is the foundation. I let that hang, watching the understanding dawn on the smarter faces. This wasn't a love story, it was a power play. Then I turned my gaze to Chloe and Diane, who were staring, mouths slightly agape. My smile never wavered, but my eyes turned to ice. As for other narratives, other performances, I said, the mic picking up the chill in my voice, we're not interested. Security? Too large. Discreet men in suits materialized at the edge of the dance floor. I looked right at Diane and Chloe. Please escort these two ladies to the exit. There appears to be a mistake. They aren't on my guest list. The silence was absolute for a full second. Then the room erupted in a torrent of whispers, shocked laughs, and the scraping of chairs as people turned to watch. Diane's face purpled. You little. Henry, my father stood up, sputtering. Kate, for God's sake. Chloe shrieked. You can't do this. The security men were politely, implacably, herding them towards the door. I lowered the microphone, the feedback whining for a second. Then Ethan's hand was on the small of my back, a solid, steady pressure. He took the mic from me, his voice calm, authoritative, cutting through the chaos. My wife, he said, the word sounding like a title, a verdict, has made her decision clear. The Thorne family values clarity, and we value genuine family. He looked directly at Lily, who was standing, trembling, a hand over her mouth. Mrs. Keller, please, you are most welcome here. Everyone else. He swept his gaze over the crowd, a king reclaiming his court. The champagne is still flowing. Let's celebrate the future. He handed the mic back to the stunned MC and guided me off the slight rise of the dance floor. As we passed my speechless father, Ethan didn't even glance at him. He leaned close to my ear, his breath a cool whisper against my heated skin, a bit more explosive than I'd have chosen. He murmured, but strategically sound and undeniably effective, "Welcome to the family, partner." I didn't look back at the commotion, at Diane's fury or Chloe's tears. I looked ahead, at the glittering room, at my mother's dazed but proud face, and at the long, gilded road stretching out before me. The foundation had been laid. It was made of thorns, yes, but I was finally wearing the gloves to handle them. The game was on. The roar in my ears wasn't the applause. It was the sound of my own heartbeat, a steady, triumphant drumming that drowned out the whispers, the gasps, the choked sob from Diane as the polished oak doors of the Metropolitan Club swung, shut behind her and Chloe. The air, thick with the scent of gardenias and old money, now crackled with a different energy. Shock, scandal, a delicious, vicious curiosity. Ethan's hand on my back was a brand, a point of unwavering contact. He didn't look at me. His gaze swept the room, a CEO quieting a restless boardroom. "Music," he said, his voice a low command to the stunned bandleader. The hesitant strains of a jazz standard started up, a feeble attempt at normalcy. "Enjoy the champagne. Everyone, the real party is just beginning." He steered me, not towards our table, but towards the private library adjacent to the ballroom. Lily was already there, ushered in by a discreet waiter on Ethan's signal. Her hands were shaking as she reached for me. "Katie, my God, what did you, the scene?" I caught her hands, squeezing them. They felt small and cold. "They started it, Mom. I just finished it." I sounded calmer than I felt. A fine tremor was starting in my legs, a delayed reaction. "Are you okay?" I'm furious. For you. At them. She took a shuddering breath, her spine straightening. A flash of the fierce woman who'd left my father appeared in her eyes. But was that wise? In front of all these people. It was necessary. Ethan answered for me, closing the library door, muffling the party sounds. He poured 3 glasses of whiskey from a decanter, handing one to me, one to Lily. In this world, perception is reality. Kate established a new reality, one where she is not to be trifled with. It was a high-risk, high-reward maneuver, messy, but definitive. He was analyzing it, dissecting it like the Atherton deal. I found a grounding. I took the glass, the crystal cool against my palm. They were going to humiliate you, Mom, in front of everyone, to make themselves look good. I wasn't going to let that stand. Not for a second. Lily sipped the whiskey, coughed, then took a deeper swallow. "I'm not used to people fighting for me. Get used to it," I said, the words a vow. My phone buzzed in the silk clutch on my wrist. A single word flashed on the screen. "Dad." I showed it to Ethan. "Right on schedule." He murmured, a flicker of something like amusement in his eyes. "Do you want to take it?" "No. He can stew." I silenced it. It buzzed again. And again. He's choosing his side. Again. He's choosing the path of least resistance. Ethan corrected, finishing his drink, which, for him, is the loudest voice in the room. Currently, that's Diane's. It won't be for long. He set the glass down. "I'll handle the vultures out there. Reframe the narrative." A strong woman defending her mother from grasping social climbers. The tabloids will eat up. You. He looked at me, then at Lily. You should go. Use the service elevator. My car will take you to the apartment. I'll join you later. The apartment? Lily asked. Our marital residence. I said. The phrase felt foreign. A penthouse on Fifth. Don't worry, Mom. It has separate wings. Lily looked between us. A lifetime of hardship, giving her a sharp clarity. This marriage of yours is a partnership. I finished, meeting Ethan's gaze, one that just passed its first stress test. He gave a single, curt nod. Indeed. Now go. The performance for the night is over. Time for the debrief. The penthouse was what you'd expect. Cold modern lines, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a postcard view of the park. Art that looked expensive and emotionless. It was a showroom. My wing was pristine, a hotel suite. Lily wandered in, her simple dress seeming alien against the minimalist gray and white. Katie, this is a tool, I said, kicking off my heels. The ache in my feet was real. The adrenaline was gone, leaving a hollow, thrumming energy, like everything else. My phone rang again. Henry, this time. I answered, putting it on speaker. Lily flinched. Catherine Marie Keller. His voice was a roar, strained and furious. What in God's name was that? Have you lost your mind? You humiliated Diane and Chloe in front of half of New York. You humiliated me. I walked to the window, looking down at the tiny, glowing cars. Hello, Father. Did you enjoy the canapes before the main event? Don't you get smart with me. You will call Diane and Chloe right now and apologize. You will issue a statement. Say it was a misunderstanding, a joke gone wrong. It wasn't a joke, I said, my voice flat. It was an eviction from my life. They're not welcome in it. Not after tonight. Not after the last 15 years. What are you talking about? Diane has been nothing but generous to you. She took you in. The old, familiar ache, the childhood longing for him to see, to understand, rose up. I smothered it. She took the bigger bedroom. Dad, she took your attention. She had me doing Chloe's homework and cleaning up after her brunch dates. You were just absent. You signed the checks and called it parenting. A sputtering silence. That is a gross distortion. You were a difficult child. Diane provided structure. She provided malice. I corrected coldly, and you provided negligence. So here's the new structure. You made your choice. Years ago. You're living with it. Stay with Diane and Chloe. Be a happy family. But you don't get to be in mine. Yours? Yours is a business arrangement with a man who's using you. Everyone knows it. I felt a stab of something. Not hurt, but irritation. Good. I hope they do, because I'm using him right back, and I'm better at it. I took a breath. But since you're so concerned with my marriage, let's talk about yours. How is Keller Supply doing? Dad, a pause. Wary. It's fine. A tight market. But we're managing. Are you? Because I've been looking at the Thorne Company procurement lists and the subsidiary that sources your grade of industrial packaging. They're considering new vendors. More stable family-run operations. It'd be a shame if your biggest contract just evaporated. The silence on the other end was complete. I could almost hear the blood draining from his face. You wouldn't. I'm a Thorne now. Dad, I said, the name feeling sharp and powerful on my tongue. And Thorns protect their interests. My interest is a peaceful, Diane-free existence. You make sure of that. And Keller Supply keeps its contract. You don't. I let the threat hang. Well, you've seen how I handle problems I don't want. Think about how I'll handle one I'm actively trying to destroy. I ended the call. The silence in the penthouse was immense. Lily was staring at me. Katie, I know, I said, the fight draining out of me, leaving me tired. I'm the villain now. No, she said softly, coming to stand beside me. She didn't touch me, just stood in solidarity. looking at the same view. You're the general who finally decided to stop retreating. It's scary to watch, but it's not wrong. She sighed. He'll choose her. You know, he always does. I'm counting on it, I said. It makes the math simpler. The key turned in the front door lock. Ethan entered, loosening his bow tie. He looked at our two silhouettes against the city lights. Well, the reviews are in. The general consensus is that you're a ruthless ice queen. I'm a calculating bastard. And together we're either the most powerful or the most terrifying couple in the room. Mission accomplished. And Diane? I asked, according to 3 separate, concerned texts from my aunt. She spent 20 minutes sobbing in the lobby, giving a masterclass in victimhood to anyone who'd listen. Chloe was reportedly hysterical. Your father looked like he'd been hit by a truck. They left in a blur of outrage and tears. He poured himself a water. The story is already shifting. The grasping social climber angle is gaining traction. People love a righteous takedown, especially if it's dramatic. Thank you, I said. The words felt inadequate. Don't thank me. It was a joint operation, and it exposed a vulnerability. He sat on the arm of a sofa, all predatory grace. They went for your mother, your emotional center of gravity. It was a smart, if crude, tactic. We need to secure that target. I went still. What do you mean? Your mother's apartment in Queens. Her routine. It's known. It's accessible. Diane is humiliated and vengeful. She's not smart enough for a complex play, but she's mean enough for a petty, damaging one. A well-meaning visit to the press. Harassing calls. Turning up at the preschool. Lily paled. I won't be driven out of my home. You won't be, Ethan said, his tone leaving no room for argument. It was the voice he used in boardrooms. You'll be upgraded. Kate, we're leasing a fully serviced apartment on the Upper East Side. Doorman, security, the works. In your mother's name, a gift from us. We'll arrange for her things to be moved discreetly. New number. New. Private email. Ethan, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you, this is basic operational security. You removed a visible threat at the wedding. Now we eliminate the follow-up risks. A protected Lily Keller is a non-issue for them, and it allows you to focus. He looked at me. You can't execute a long-term strategy if you're constantly worried about a flanking maneuver on your home base. He was right. Of course he was right. It was all assets and liabilities. Risk mitigation. I looked at Lily, seeing the fear, the reluctance, the pride. Mom, please, let me do this. Not for me, for my peace of mind, so I can sleep at night. She wrestled with it, her pride warring with the cold. New reality. Finally, she nodded. A short, sharp movement. All right, but I get a say in the decor, and I'm keeping my job. I'm not becoming a kept woman in a gilded cage. Ethan almost smiled. A woman after my own heart. Practical. The apartment is yours. The job is yours. Consider the doorman a workplace safety enhancement. He stood. I'll have my assistant, Claire, handle the details tomorrow. Discreetly, he started towards his wing, then paused. One more thing. Kate, the tax issues with your stepfather's company. I blinked. What tax issues? The ones my forensic accounting team found in about 30 minutes of looking. Sloppy creative bookkeeping. The kind that could attract an IRS audit that would sink a company already on thin ice. His expression was utterly neutral. I have the preliminary report. It's a lever. If you want to pull it. He was handing me a weapon. A loaded, precise, legal weapon. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. This was the other side of the Thorn Alliance. Not just the social shield, but the quiet, brutal power to dismantle lives from a distance. Not yet, I said, my voice quiet, but keep it ready. He nodded, as if I'd pass another test. As you wish. Good night. Kate. Lily. He disappeared into his wing. Lily let out a long, shaky breath. He's intense. He's effective, I said, the mantra settling me. And right now, effective is what we need. I put an arm around her shoulders. Let's get you settled in the guest room. Tomorrow, we start building a fortress. The fortress went up with frightening speed. Within 48 hours, Lily was installed in a bright, secure two-bedroom overlooking the park. Her move was handled by a discreet, efficient service. Her new phone rang only for me, Ethan, and her school. The fallout in the media was a brief, bright flare. The Post ran a snarky item. Ice Queen melts down at own wedding. But it was quickly buried by a strategically leaked blind item in a society blog about an aging social climber and her copycat daughter causing a tasteless scene. Ethan's PR machine was subtle and effective. The narrative among the people who mattered, that the ones with real money and power, was that Diane and Chloe were tacky, and I was fiercely loyal, a useful, if somewhat terrifying, trait. A week after the wedding, I was back at Thorne Company, in my new office. It was bigger, with a view that was only slightly less impressive than Ethan's. The plaque on the door read, Catherine Keller Thorne, partner. The weight of it was physical, solid. My first day, Marcus Thorne, Ethan's cousin, sauntered in without knocking. He was all practice charm and lazy cruelty, like a cat that toys with its food. The prodigy returns, he said, leaning against my doorframe. Or should I call you Cinderella? Though I hear you're less about glass slippers and more about glass knives these days. I didn't look up from my screen. Marcus, did you need something? I'm reviewing the Q3 projections for the Asian funds, the ones you oversaw. The variance is interesting. His smile tightened. Just welcoming you to the family. Officially, it's quite a leap. From junior analyst to partner. Some might call it a vertical integration. The insinuation was clear. I finally met his gaze. Some might. Those with a limited understanding of meritocracy and a vested interest in the status quo. The Atherton ROI should quiet most of them. It added, what, $2 billion to the fund's value? But you'd know the exact figure. Of course. His eyes narrowed. The Atherton deal was my signature victory, and a silent rebuke to his own. More conservative strategies. A lucky break. Luck is what happens when preparation meets a market inefficiency, I said, echoing one of Ethan's favorite lines. Was there anything else? I have a call with Singapore. He pushed off the doorframe. The charm gone. Enjoy the view. Kate, storms have a way of clearing the air and knocking things from great heights. I'll keep that in mind. Marcus, do close the door on your way out. That evening, in the penthouse, Ethan and I had our first official debrief as partners in truth. We sat at the sleek kitchen island, laptops open, but the business was personal. Marcus paid a visit, I said, sipping mineral water. I heard. He's nervous. Your promotion blocks his protégé's path. He's testing you. Ethan scrolled through something on his tablet. The apartment is secure. Your mother is adjusting. The IRS file is pending. Good. I pulled up a different file. I've been thinking. Diane's power over my father is financial and social. We've attacked the social. We need to destabilize the financial. The company audit would do that. It's a blunt instrument. I want something more surgical, something that feels like fate, not an attack. I turned my screen to him. It showed the profile of a mid-sized, family-owned packaging supplier in Ohio. Keller Supply's main competitor for the Thorne contract. Solid, slightly more expensive, but family-run for 3 generations. A feel-good story. Ethan's eyes glinted with understanding. We switched the Thorne subsidiary's contract to them, not because Keller Supply is in trouble, but because our new ESG initiatives favor multi-generational, employee-focused businesses, a positive PR move. Exactly. It's a business decision, a moral one, even. No fingerprints. It weakens my father's company, puts pressure on his home life. and makes Diane's spending habits a point of tension rather than pride. I felt a cold clarity. It starts the crack. We let their own resentment do the rest. Ethan studied me for a long moment. You're not just defending anymore. You're on the offensive. You said to eliminate risks. They are a risk, an emotional one that can impact my focus, and by extension, our partnership's performance. I used his own language. This is risk management. A slow, approving smile touched his lips. It wasn't warm, but it was real. Proceed. I'll have the procurement director reach out to the Ohio firm tomorrow. The narrative will be about sustainability and legacy. He closed his laptop. There's a charity gala at the Museum of Modern Art next week. My family will be there in force. It's our first public appearance as a married couple since the wedding. They'll be watching closely. What's the play? I asked. All business. The play is a united front, confident, untouchable, in love, or a reasonable facsimile thereof. We sell the story. The brilliant, ruthless partner you saw at the wedding, that's for the boardroom. For the public, especially my family, we need to show the softer side of the merger. Can you do that? I thought of Diane's sneer, Chloe's simper, Marcus's smirk. I thought of the cold, clean power of redirecting a multi-million-dollar contract with a few keystrokes. I looked at Ethan, my business partner, my temporary husband, my ally in this gilded war. Just tell me what the costume change is, and I'll hit my marks. The MoMA Gala was a different beast. The wedding had been a sanctioned spectacle. This was a battlefield disguised as a fundraiser. The air smelled of champagne, expensive perfume, and quiet, simmering ambition. I stood beside Ethan at the edge of the main hall, a glass of Perrier Jouet in my hand, feeling like a specimen under glass. My dress was a column of liquid silver, simple, severe, and exorbitantly priced. Armor. Ethan leaned in, his breath a warm whisper against my temple. His lips were close enough to suggest intimacy. His voice was all business. 10 o'clock. My uncle, Richard, and his wife, Eleanor. He's on the board. Old money. Conservative. Thinks I'm a reckless upstart. She's a gossip with the memory of an elephant and the moral compass of a weather vane. They'll test you on etiquette and pedigree. Stick to art and philanthropy. Eleanor chairs the museum's acquisitions committee. I gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. My eyes swept the room. And the vultures? Marcus is by the Monet, holding court. My sister, Genevieve, is near the bar. She's the wild card, supports me in theory, hates the patriarchy in practice, and isn't sure if our marriage is a subversion of it or a reinforcement. Be genuine. She can smell bullshit a mile away. And your father? A subtle tension tightened the line of his jaw. William will make his entrance last. Observe. Don't approach. He'll come to us if he's inclined. Understood. I took a small sip, the bubbles sharp on my tongue. Showtime. We moved as one unit. Ethan's hand was a light, possessive guide on the small of my back. Uncle Richard, Aunt Eleanor. You remember my wife. Kate. Richard Thorne was older, heavier set version of Ethan's father, with eyes like chips of flint. Eleanor was all sharp angles and diamonds that could cut glass. Her smile was a thin, assessing line. Of course, the talk of the town, Eleanor said, her voice like dry leaves. That wedding exit was certainly memorable. I returned her smile, letting it reach my eyes just enough to be polite, not enough to be warm. Some occasions call for clarity, don't you think? I found it saves so much time in the long run. Ethan mentioned you're deeply involved with the new contemporary wing. Eleanor, the Kuhn's acquisition was a bold move. Were you for or against? It was the right question. Her eyes flickered with interest, pulled from the personal to the professional. For, naturally, it's divisive, which is the point. Art should provoke. She launched into a monologue about institutional legacy. Richard watched me. not her, his gaze calculating. And you, Kate, he interjected when Eleanor paused for breath. Your background is in finance. Do you find the art world frivolous? A classic trap. Dismiss it. And I'm a Philistin. Embrace it. And I'm a poseur. Ethan's thumb moved in a tiny, almost reassuring circle on my back. I find it a fascinating mirror of the market. Uncle Richard, I said, my tone thoughtful. Speculation, perceived value, the creation of meaning from abstraction. The stakes are just as high, though the currency is different. A bad investment loses money. A bad acquisition loses a century of credibility. I tilted my head towards a stark Rothko. That one. For instance, it's not a painting. It's a threat and a promise, much like a hostile takeover bid. Richard stared at me for a long beat, then let out a short, surprised bark of laughter. By God, Ethan, she's got your tongue. It wasn't entirely a compliment, but the challenge in his eyes had receded, replaced by a wary respect. We'll see how that perspective holds up in the boardroom. I look forward to it, I said, and meant it. We excused ourselves. Ethan murmured, Coons and Rothko. Well played. I did my homework. Obviously, we navigated the crowd. A series of brief, intense encounters. I was Kate, darling to people I'd never met. Subjected to veiled questions about the wedding. So brave. An open curiosity about my role at Thorne Company. A real job. How modern. I deflected with practiced ease, steering conversations to their charities, their collections, their opinions, letting them talk, revealing themselves while I revealed nothing. I felt a gaze on me, heavy and evaluating. I turned. William Thorne stood near the entrance, flanked by assistants. He didn't look like a man who'd recently been ill. He looked carved from granite, his eyes the same pale, disconcerting blue as Ethan's, sweeping the room like a searchlight. They landed on us, held. Then he turned away, engaging a senator in conversation. He's waiting, Ethan said quietly, making us come to him. Then we wait longer. I replied, turning to survey a Calder mobile. We're not petitioners. Genevieve found us next. She was Ethan's opposite in every way, vibrant where he was contained, draped in colorful silk, her dark hair a wild curl. So, you're the mystery woman who turned my brother's merger into a blood sport, she said by way of greeting. No smile. Genevieve, Ethan said, a note of warning in his voice. It's fine, I said. I looked at her. It wasn't a sport. It was pest control. A genuine laugh burst from her. Okay, I'll give you that. She leaned closer, her perfume a cloud of jasmine and rebellion. Look, I think the whole marriage for the trust thing is a patriarchal farce. But watching you boot those harpies was the most entertainment I've had at a family function since Uncle Arthur set his cravat on fire with a cigar. So, for now, you have my bemused observation. She winked and melted back into the crowd. She likes you, Ethan said, sounding vaguely surprised. She likes the chaos. For now, it's enough. The moment we'd been anticipating and dreading arrived just as the silent auction was closing. Marcus Thorne materialized beside us, a fresh drink in his hand, a smirk on his face. He wasn't alone. With him was a man I recognized from society pages, Carter Bainbridge, a third-generation trust fund brat with a reputation for being a useful idiot for sharper players. Cousin, Kate, Marcus greeted, his tone oily. You're looking recovered from the excitement. Marcus, Ethan replied, his voice neutral. Carter, Thorne, my man, and the infamous Mrs. Thorne. Carter boomed, his eyes sliding over me with a drunk, familiar gleam. Hell of an entrance you made. Got to say, I like a woman with spark, even if it comes from, the wrong side of the tracks. He chuckled, as if he'd said something clever. The air around Ethan went cold. I felt it. I placed a calming hand on his arm before he could speak. The tracks you're referring to, Carter, are usually where the real work gets done. I said, my voice sweet as poison. I'm sure you're more familiar with the passenger service. Carter's smile faltered. Marcus jumped in, his eyes alight with malice. Now, Carter's just being honest. It's refreshing. We're all friends here. Speaking of refreshment, how is your mother? Kate, settling into her new place? Quite the upgrade. Must be a comfort. Knowing Ethan can provide such security. It was a direct hit, disguised as concern, impugning Lily, reducing my marriage to a transaction, all in one blow. I saw a few heads turn subtly in our direction, ears pricked. Ethan opened his mouth, his face a mask of icy fury, but I squeezed his arm, a silent signal. My fight, I let my smile widen, turning fully to Marcus. It is a comfort. Marcus, just as it must be a comfort for you to know that the firm's performance this quarter is up 17%, largely due to the Atherton restructuring and the new Asian fund strategy, the one you voted against in the investment committee. I paused, letting that land. But then, security means different things to different people. For some, it's knowing your family is safe. For others, I glanced at Carter, then back to Marcus. It's just clinging to a bored seat by your fingernails and hoping no one looks at the numbers too closely. How is your biotech portfolio performing? I heard the FDA concerns are troubling. Marcus's face went slack, then mottled with rage. I'd done my homework. All right, I'd memorized every vulnerable point on his financial body. Carter, confused but sensing he'd lost the thread, blustered. Hey now, no need for shop talk. You're right, Carter. I cut in, my voice dropping, becoming intimate, deadly. This is a party, so let's talk party favors. I saw your date earlier. Lovely girl, a junior analyst at Goldman. Isn't she? I believe I met her boyfriend at a rather intense litigation associate, a bar function last month. Small world. Carter's drink froze halfway to his lips. The color drained from his face. The rumor of his poaching a junior from a rival bank, and the potentially messy personal entanglements, was a secret he thought was well buried. I leaned in, just a fraction. As you said, Marcus, we're all friends here, and friends don't bring a knife to a gunfight. They certainly don't bring a spoon. I straightened up, my smile brilliant and utterly false. Now, if you'll excuse us, I believe William is signaling for us. I didn't wait for a response. I turned, Ethan falling into step beside me. William wasn't signaling, but we cut a path through the crowd towards a relatively quiet alcove anyway. We stopped, the noise of the party a dull roar behind us. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic, alive rhythm. Ethan stared at me, his expression unreadable. The biotech play was in a closed-door meeting. He said finally, his voice low, "How did you know about the FDA concerns? Claire has a friend at the agency. I asked her to do some digging, light digging, and Carter's extracurricular? A lucky guess, based on his type and a photo I saw in page 6. He confirmed it with his face. Amateurs." I took a shaky breath, the adrenaline beginning to recede. I might have escalated. Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then, he did something completely unexpected. He reached out and very gently, almost reverently, brushed a stray strand of hair behind my ear. His fingertips grazed my cheek, a shock of warmth. "No," he said, his voice rough. "That wasn't escalation. That was a targeted strike with zero collateral damage. You just declared a no-fly zone over your airspace, and you gave them the radar coordinates." A slow, fierce pride lit his eyes. My uncle hasn't looked that apoplectic since he lost the chairmanship to my father. The touch, the look, the intensity of his approval, IT was too much, too personal. It blurred the lines. I took a small step back. breaking the contact. Good. Then the message was received. The warmth in his eyes didn't dim, but it shifted, tempered by something else. Frustration? Resignation. Loud and clear. He murmured, "Catherine." The voice was like gravel rolling in a steel drum. William Thorne stood 5 feet away, having approached without a sound. He looked from Ethan to me, his gaze missing nothing. "Father," Ethan said, his posture shifting subtly into something more formal. "Sir," I said, meeting his eyes. Up close, the power radiating from him was palpable, a physical force. "I observed your exchange with my nephew," William said, his voice devoid of inflection. "A blunt instrument, Marcus, but not without his uses. You made him look like a fool." "He did that himself," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I just provided the mirror." A ghost of something that amusement flickered in his pale eyes. Ethan tells me you're responsible for the Ohio supplier pivot." "Yes, G. Smart, clean, good optics, and it weakens a problematic connection. Sentiment is a liability in business. I've found it to be a controllable variable. Sir, when properly managed." He studied me for what felt like an eternity. "My son's marriage was a condition. I viewed it as a necessary concession, a potential distraction." He paused. "You may prove to be less of a distraction and more of an asset. See that it stays that way." It wasn't a blessing. It was evaluation. He gave a curt nod to Ethan and walked away, leaving us in the buzzing silence of his wake. Ethan let out a long, slow breath. "That," he said, "is as close to a welcome to the family as you'll ever get from him." My phone vibrated in my clutch. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo, taken from a distance, of Lily walking into her apartment building, a grocery bag in her hand. The message below read, "Cozy new cage for the little bird. Does she like it?" No signature. It didn't need one. The cool, victorious high from facing down Marcus evaporated, replaced by a black, freezing rage. I showed the screen to Ethan. His face hardened into something terrifying. "The apartment is secure. She's safe," he said, his voice like ice. "But the message is clear. They're watching. They're not done." I looked back towards the glittering party, the laughter, the empty spectacle of it all. The masquerade was over. The warning shot had been fired, and the real war, it seemed, was just beginning. I met Ethan's eyes, my own reflecting the same cold, determined flame I saw in his. "Good," I said, slipping the phone back into my clutch. "Because neither am I." The cold fury from the gala didn't dissipate in the car ride home. It hardened into a core of glacial resolve. The anonymous text was a pebble against my armor, but it was aimed at a chink, Lily. Ethan's security detail gave their report the moment we entered the penthouse. A lone figure with a long lens camera, parked in a delivery zone across from Lily's building. They'd been seen and spooked before they could get a clearer shot. The license plate was a dead-end rental. Amateurs, Ethan confirmed, pouring 2 fingers of bourbon. "Diane wouldn't have the network for anything sophisticated. She's trying to scare you. A psychological play. It's working," I admitted, the admission bitter on my tongue. I didn't accept the glass he offered. I needed a clear head, not the fear, the rage. "It's inefficient. I need to focus. And she's polluting my operating environment." Ethan studied me. "So we sanitize it. The tax file on your stepfather's company. Keller Supplies. My people have the full audit trail. It's a mess. Creative deductions, misclassified expenses, offshore accounts that smell like evasion, not avoidance. One call to the right person at the IRS, and they'll be under a microscope within a week. It'll tie them up in audits and legal fees for years. A financial death by 1,000 cuts." I walked to the window, looking at the orderly grid of lights. A financial death. Clean. Impersonal. It was what I'd wanted. But the text, the image of my mother as a target, changed the calculus. A slow bleed wasn't enough. They needed to understand the consequence of touching what was mine. They needed to feel it immediately. No, I said, turning to face him. Not the IRS. Not yet. That's a regulatory sledgehammer. It's noisy, and it takes too long. I want a market execution. I want it quiet, professional, and I want it to feel like an act of God. Ethan's eyes narrowed with interest. Go on. Keller Supply's Lifeline is the Thorne subsidiary contract. We're already switching it to the Ohio firm for the ESG narrative, but that's a slow strangle. I want to cut the oxygen line now. Today, their biggest client after us is Brandt Manufacturing, right? Correct. A 30-year relationship. Old school loyalty. Henry Keller plays golf with old man Brandt. Loyalty has a breaking point. I said, my mind clicking through the variables. What if Brandt discovers that Keller Supplies has been knowingly providing them with a sub-spec polymer blend for the last 18 months? A blend that fails under specific stress tests, threatening the integrity of Brandt's own product line? A product liability nightmare waiting to happen. Ethan was already nodding, following the logic. You'd need proof, incontrovertible, technical proof. And you'd need Brandt to discover it from a neutral third party, a disgruntled former Keller quality assurance manager, perhaps one who left over ethical concerns and took his documentation to a respected industry watchdog blog. The blog, known for its integrity, would of course verify the data before publishing. They'd also, as a courtesy, alert Brandt Manufacturing privately a few hours before the story goes live. I met his gaze. Brandt, to avoid catastrophic liability and reputational damage, would have no choice but to immediately terminate all contracts and sue Keller Supplies for fraud. The news would kill any remaining credit lines. The company would be bankrupt in weeks, not years. The silence in the room was profound. Ethan took a slow sip of his bourbon. That's not a market force. That's a precision strike. You'd be fabricating evidence. No, I said coolly. We'd be revealing it. My father cuts corners. He always has. Diane's spending forced him to. I'd bet my partnership that the sub-spec blend is real. We just need to illuminate it and ensure the right person is looking. Your forensic team can find the discrepancy. The former manager is a narrative construct, a ghost, and the watchdog blog? You own a stake in the Verity report through the Family Foundation. A call from you expressing hypothetical concern about a story crossing their desk, ensuring it gets vetted and published. A slow, genuine smile spread across Ethan's face. It was the smile he reserved for a perfectly executed hostile takeover. You're not just playing defense. You're engineering their collapse from the inside out. It's elegant and ruthless. You said to eliminate the risk. This eliminates it permanently. It also sends a message. Touch my family. And I don't just hit back. I erase the board you're playing on. He set his glass down. Do it. The machinery of revenge was shockingly efficient when powered by Thorne resources. Within 72 hours, it was done. The discrepancy in the polymer shipment logs was discovered by our analysts. A confidential, anonymized tip was sent to the Verity report. A separate, more detailed packet from a John Doe former employee arrived at the personal email of Brandt Manufacturing's CEO. I was in my office, reviewing a merger proposal, when my phone rang. It was my father. This time, I answered. His voice wasn't angry. It was shattered. Kate. It was a whisper, broken by static that might have been sobs. What have you done? I leaned back in my chair, the leather cool against my skin. I'm reviewing the Q4 projections. Dad, you'll have to be more specific. Brandt, they severed all ties. They're suing us for fraud. The bank called. They're pulling our credit line. The story is everywhere. They're saying we knowingly sold faulty materials. His words tumbled out, a waterfall of panic. We're finished. Do you understand? 40 years. Finished. I let the silence stretch. Let him hear the calm on my end of the line. That's terrible. Dad, it sounds like a serious compliance failure. I'd look to your quality control lead. Or, I added, my voice dropping, whoever was pressuring you to cut costs to fund a lifestyle you couldn't afford. The silence on the other end was different now, comprehending, and cold with horror. You. It was you. I told you at the wedding. I said, my tone conversational. I protect what's mine. You chose Diane and Chloe. You made your bed in a house of cards. I just leaned on the door. She's your family. He roared, the grief turning back to rage. No, I said, the word flat and final. Lily is my family. You are a genetic donor who allowed a viper into the nest. You get to lie in it. With her. I took a breath. Here's your one and only offer. You file for divorce from Diane. You cut all financial ties to her and Chloe. You liquidate what's left of Keller supplies, pay off the creditors, and take the personal bankruptcy. I will ensure the Thorne subsidiary contract, at a reduced level, goes to a small, reputable firm I select, and you will be employed there as a consultant. A modest salary, a quiet life. You walk away from her, and I let you walk away with a shred of dignity and a roof over your head. You're asking me to destroy my life. I'm giving you a chance to save what's left of it from the wreckage you created. The alternative is watching Diane leave you for a richer target, which she will. The moment the money's gone, and dying penniless and alone. Your choice. I paused. Oh, and if you, Diane, or Chloe come within 500 yards of my mother again, or send another text, or so much as think her name, I won't stop with the company. I'll have every credit card, every hidden account, every piece of jewelry she's ever charged audited. I'll bury you all so deep in litigation, you'll need a mining permit to see daylight. Do we understand each other? All I heard was ragged breathing. Then, the line went dead. I set the phone down. My hands were steady. There was no triumph, only a hollow, sterile sense of completion. A problem had been solved. My intercom buzzed. Claire's voice, tight. Ms. Kellerthorne, there's a situation in the lobby. A Diane and Chloe Keller. They're demanding to see you. They're causing a scene. Security is containing them. But, of course, the direct assault, the last resort of the truly desperate, have them brought up to the 44th floor conference room, the empty one, and send up 2 security personnel. Quietly, the conference room was all glass and cold light. Diane and Chloe looked like refugees from a different world. Diane's designer suit was wrinkled, her makeup smudged. Chloe's face was puffy from crying, her expression a mix of fury and utter disbelief. The veneer was gone, stripped raw by financial catastrophe. You bitch, Diane hissed the moment the door closed behind the discreet security guard who stood by the entrance. You vicious, ungrateful little bitch. You ruined us. I didn't touch you, I said, remaining standing. I touched the company whose profits you bled dry. You ruined yourselves. I just turned out the lights. We're family, Chloe shrieked, taking a step forward. The security guard shifted slightly. She froze. Your own father. You lost the right to that word the first time you called my mother simple. I said, my voice like ice. The first time you stole my room. The first time you made me feel like an intruder in my own home. You're not family. You're a bad investment my father made, and I'm writing you off. Diane's eyes darted around the room, the tangible proof of the wealth and power she'd coveted. You think you've won? You're just a gold digger who sold herself to a colder, richer man. He'll toss you aside when he's done, and you'll be nothing, just like your pathetic mother. The rage, the black, oily rage, surged, but I didn't let it touch my face. I smiled. It was the smile that scared Ethan, the one that didn't reach my eyes. You're right. This is a transaction, and the currency is power. I have it now. You don't. And as for my mother, She's currently selecting upholstery for her new apartment, the one with the 24-hour doorman and the view of the park. How's the view from the foreclosure notice? Diane? Chloe lunged. A wordless scream of fury. The security guard was faster, catching her arm in a firm, impersonal grip. Let me go. You can't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said, nodding to the guard to release her. Chloe stumbled back, rubbing her arm. You did it all to yourselves. Now, here are your options, which are more than you ever gave me. You leave New York. You take whatever cash you've hidden from my father, and don't bother denying it. I've seen the statements from the Cayman account, and you go. You start over somewhere cheap. You never contact me, my husband, or my mother again. You don't speak our names. Or what? Diane spat, but the fight was bleeding out of her, replaced by a dawning, terrified comprehension of her new reality. Or, I said softly, I released the full IRS file to the authorities and the press. Fraud is one thing. Tax evasion is another. I wonder how that community in the Hamptons you're so desperate to impress will feel about visiting you in Danbury. I hear the conjugal visits are limited. The color drained from Diane's face. She saw it then. The abyss. The total, utter ruin. Not just bankruptcy, but scandal and prison. Chloe just whimpered, the reality finally crashing down. You have 24 hours to decide, I said, walking to the door. The security detail will see you out. And off the premises, permanently. I didn't go back to my office. I went to the building's rooftop garden, a manicured space of concrete and hardy shrubs. The wind was sharp. I needed it. I didn't hear him approach, but I felt his presence. Ethan stood beside me, leaning on the railing, looking out at the city. Claire told me they were here. I saw the security feed. You handled it. He paused. Your father called me. An hour ago. He was incoherent. He accepted your terms. He's filing for divorce. I just nodded, the wind whipping my hair. The hollow feeling was back. You won, Ethan said, not looking at me. Did I? The words were out before I could stop them. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like cleaning up a toxic spill. Necessary, messy, and the ground is still poisoned. He turned to face me, his blue eyes searching my face. What did you want it to feel like? I thought of the girl in the tiny room. I thought of Lily's chapped hands. I wanted it to feel like something was fixed. Instead, it just feels gone, broken. And I'm the one who swung the hammer. Some things need to be broken, he said, his voice low, to be rebuilt properly. I looked at him then, really looked, at the man who'd provided the hammer, the anvil, the entire forge, my partner in this calculated, gilded destruction. Why are you doing this? The security, the leverage, playing along with this vendetta? It's not in the contract. He was silent for a long moment. The cities roar a distant hum. Because I've spent my life surrounded by people who fight for things that don't matter. Money they already have. Status that's an illusion. You. He shook his head, a rare gesture of frustration. You fight for something real. For your mother. For the girl you were. It's the most honest thing I've seen in this world of lies. He seemed to struggle for the word. It's compelling. The word hung between us. Compelling. Not beautiful. Not good. Compelling. Like a complex equation. A high-stakes deal. Don't, I said quietly, turning back to the skyline. Don't make it into something it's not. Ethan, it's just survival. Ugly. Messy survival. I know ugly survival, he said, his voice even quieter. I've been practicing it my whole life. I just never had a reason for it. That wasn't my own ambition. He took a step closer. I could feel the heat of him against the chill air. Kate, the contract, it's just paper. What if we... I knew what he was going to say, and it terrified me more than Diane, more than Marcus, more than anything. It was a variable I couldn't control, a risk with an incalculable downside. I turned, cutting him off. The contract is the foundation, I said, my voice firm, locking away the sudden, strange ache in my chest. It's the only reason any of this works. Let's not confuse a successful alliance with something else. We have a deal, a good deal. Let's not break it by wanting more. He studied me. The vulnerability I'd glimpsed shut away behind a mask of cool understanding. The businessman returned. He gave a slow, curt nod. Of course. A momentary lapse. The pressure of the campaign. He straightened his cufflinks. A habitual, distancing gesture. The Ohio contract is signed. Brandt is making the announcement tomorrow. Your father's lawyer has been in touch with mine. The extraction is proceeding. Good, I said, the hollow feeling expanding. Victory tasted like ashes. There's a charity board meeting tomorrow night. The Thorne Family Foundation. It's tedious, but my father expects our presence. A show of unity after the recent turbulence. I'll be there, I said. He nodded once more and walked away, leaving me alone with the wind and the poisoned ground of my victory. I had won the battle. I had secured the fortress. So why did it feel like I was the one locked inside? The week after Diane's implosion felt eerily quiet. The world outside the penthouse windows continued its frantic pace. But inside, a new, tense stillness had settled between Ethan and me. The almost confession on the rooftop hung in the air like static, a charge we both carefully avoided. Our interactions reverted to pure protocol, clipped morning briefings, updates on the Brandt fallout, logistics for the endless round of social and professional obligations that came with the Thorne name. It was more distant than before. The easy, vicious camaraderie of our partnership had been replaced by a careful, polite distance. I'd drawn a line, and he, ever the strategist, was respecting it. It was what I wanted. It felt like a loss. The Thorne Family Foundation board meeting was a masterclass in stifled aggression. It was held in the wood-paneled library of William Thorne's Fifth Avenue duplex. The air smelled of old money, aged scotch, and quiet contempt. We were the last to arrive. William sat at the head of a massive oak table, a patriarch holding court. Marcus was to his right, smirking. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins I'd memorized from dossiers filled the other seats. Genevieve gave me a slight, ironic eyebrow raise from the far end. Ethan, Catherine, William intoned, not looking up from a portfolio. Sit. We're reviewing the Q2 disbursements. The pediatric oncology wing at New York Presbyterian is over budget. Marcus has concerns. Marcus leaned forward. The picture of responsible stewardship. Substantial concerns. The projections were optimistic. The cost overruns are significant. It calls the entire project's management into question. He glanced at Ethan. The oncology wing was Ethan's pet project, his one visible concession to sentiment. Ethan's expression didn't change. Medical construction is volatile. Supply chain issues we accounted for worsened. The overrun is 8.7%. The contingency fund covers 7%. We're asking the foundation to cover the 1.7% delta. The benefit is unchanged. In fact, with the new Haas surgical suite, it's enhanced. A 1.7% delta on a 9-figure project is still millions. Cousin, Marcus said smoothly, money that could fund a dozen smaller, more certain charities. It seems an awful lot of risk for a naming opportunity. It was a direct jab, implying Ethan's philanthropy was just for a plaque. I felt Ethan's leg tense beside me under the table. Before he could speak, I set my pen down. The soft click was deliberate. All eyes shifted to me. Marcus, what's the 5-year survival rate for standard treatment on the cancers this wing specializes in? My voice was calm, curious. He blinked. That's not the point. The financial oversight. It's 32%. I continued, as if he hadn't spoken. I opened the folder in front of me. I'd read every line of the prospectus, the protocols enabled by the Haas suite. according to the lead researchers at Sloan Kettering we're partnering with, project an increase to 41% in the first 5 years of operation. That's a 9-point swing. In human terms, that's hundreds of children who live. I looked at William, then at the other board members. The delta Marcus is concerned about breaks down to approximately $18,000 per projected life year saved. The foundation's investment portfolio, which I reviewed this morning, gained roughly that amount in the time we've been sitting here. The risk isn't in the overrun. The risk is in not funding it. The reputational damage of being the board that quibbled over 1.7% while children died for lack of a cutting-edge machine would be incalculable. And, I might add, terrible for returns. ESG-conscious investors have long memories. The room was silent. Genevieve's lips twitched. William's gaze settled on me. Unreadable. Marcus looked like he'd swallowed a bug. A compelling reframing. William said finally, his voice dry, the allocation is approved. Next item, the arts grant in Queens. The meeting proceeded. Marcus shot me a look of pure, venomous hatred. I'd publicly outmaneuvered him, not with a personal insult, but with cold, hard, morally unassailable math. It was more humiliating for him. After the meeting, as people milled about, William gestured for Ethan to follow him into his study. Genevieve sidled up to me as I collected my things. 9-point swing. She murmured, impressed. You just weaponized pediatric oncology. That's a new low. I love it. It was just data, I said, but I felt a grim satisfaction. Sure, and a scalpel is just metal, until it's in the right hands. She leaned in. Watch Marcus. He's not used to losing, especially not to a... She trailed off, grinning, reframing. Ethan emerged from the study, his face a careful blank, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. In the car back to the office, he was silent for several blocks. He approved the funding, Ethan said finally, staring out the window. But he also reminded me that sentiment, even calculated, profitable sentiment, can be a distraction. He was talking about the wing. I'm not sure he was only talking about the wing. He meant me. I was the sentiment, the variable. The numbers defended themselves. I said stiffly, they did, because you armed them. He turned to look at me, the professional mask slipping for a second, revealing a weary frustration. Thank you for that. It's a constant war of attrition with him, with all of them. It's my job, I said, the words automatic. But it felt like more. It felt like standing back to back in a fight. And the line between duty and something else was blurring again, dangerously. The real crisis hit 2 days later. It was after 8 p.m. I was in my home office, parsing through a dense regulatory filing, when Ethan's study door slammed open. He rarely lost his composure. Now, his shirt sleeves were rolled up, his tie missing, and a vein pulsed in his temple. We have a problem. A big one. He didn't sit. He paced. The Veritas acquisition. My stomach dropped. Veritas was a boutique AI analytics firm. Ethan's signature play to modernize Thorne Company's legacy infrastructure. A $1 billion deal. Months in the making. It was supposed to close next week. What happened? The FTC. A surprise. In-depth review, triggered by a confidential complaint about data monopoly concerns. He stopped, raking a hand through his hair. It's a poison pill, a regulatory delay of 6 months, minimum. The financing falls apart. The sellers get cold feet. The whole deal collapses. Marcus, I said, the name leaving my lips like a curse. Of course, Marcus. He can't block it outright in the boardroom. So he goes to the regulators. It's a bureaucratic ambush. Clean, deniable, and potentially catastrophic. If this fails, the narrative becomes that I can't execute the big, transformative plays. The board's confidence. He didn't need to finish. I'd seen the power dynamics. This was a checkmate move. I stood, my mind already racing, pushing aside fatigue. The complaint, it has to be specific. What's the alleged monopoly? They're claiming the merged entity would control over 40% of the predictive risk modeling data for the Eastern C-brand commercial real estate market. It's a niche, but it's plausible, but narrow. I muttered, walking to the whiteboard we kept in the shared space. I started scribbling. Market definitions, data segmentation. They define the market that way to hit the threshold. What if we redefine it? Ethan came to stand beside me, his focus sharpening. How? We spin off the data assets in question, not sell them. Spin them off into a separate, independent trust, a data co-op. We license the data back at a fair rate. It eliminates the monopoly claim overnight. The FTC's primary objection vanishes. He stared at the board, thoughts moving behind his eyes. It's a huge concession. It gets half the strategic value of the acquisition. Does it? I pressed. The value isn't in owning that specific data stream. It's in Veritas's AI engine that can analyze it. We'd still have exclusive access via the license. We lose absolute control, but we keep the utility, and we get a massive PR win. Thorne Company champions data transparency and market health. We'd look like heroes, not villains. It blunts Marcus's attack and turns it to our advantage. The silence stretched as he wrestled with it. It was a radical, risky pivot. Letting go of hard assets went against every instinct of a man like Ethan. The Veritas founders will hate it. They're selling for a clean exit. Then we renegotiate the price. Downward. The risk has changed. We present it as the only path to a deal. Their alternative is a 6-month regulatory hellscape and a likely collapse sale. They'll take the bird in the hand. I turned to him. It's not the win you wanted. It's a different win, but it's a win. And it steals Marcus's victory right out from under him. Ethan looked from the board to me. In the harsh fluorescent light of the home office, the weariness was still there, but it was mixed with a dawning, fierce admiration. You'd have to present it to the Veritas board. Tomorrow, it has to come from the strategist, not the deal breaker. They need to see the brain, not the wallet. I can do that. I know. He said it simply, a statement of fact. Then, he did something that stopped my breath. He reached out and very gently tucked the same stray strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering for a heartbeat against my cheek. The touch was different from before, not tentative, but proprietary, certain. Let's get to work. We worked through the night. Spreadsheets, legal precedents, new term sheets. We argued over points, drank terrible coffee, and built the new deal from the ashes of the old. As dawn tinged the sky gray, we had it, a leaner, meaner, regulator-proof agreement. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. It's good. It might even be better. It's survival. I said, my voice hoarse. It's brilliance. He looked at me, the early light softening the sharp planes of his face. Kate, about what I said on the roof. Don't. I cut in, the old fear lurching. The partnership was working. This fragile, powerful alliance. I couldn't let it fracture. The deal is the deal. Ethan. This. I gestured between us. At the whiteboard, the empty coffee cups. This is the deal working. Let's not complicate it. He held my gaze, and I saw the argument in his eyes, the frustration, but he also saw my resolve, my fear. The businessman won. He gave a single, slow nod. Understood. Get some sleep. You have a board to convince in 6 hours. The presentation was a blur of focused intensity. I stood before the skeptical Veritas founders and their lawyers, and I didn't sell them a salvage job. I sold them a revolution. I painted the data co-op as an industry-leading ethical standard, the lowered price as a reflection of shared risk and visionary partnership. I spoke their language of disruption and legacy. When I finished, the lead founder, a brilliant, cynical woman in her 50s, nodded slowly. You've taken a problem and turned it into a branding opportunity. I'm not sure if I'm annoyed or impressed. Be both. I said, it's how we'll make it work. They agreed in principle. The news hit the wires by afternoon. Thorne Company innovates to save Veritas deal. Creates data, transparency trust. The stock ticked up. The analysts praised the agile, forward-thinking solution. Marcus was reportedly apoplectic. My phone buzzed with a text from a now familiar unknown number. Not Diane. Something worse. It was a photo taken from inside a crowded, trendy downtown bar. It showed Ethan, from behind, at a corner table, seated across from him, leaning in with an intimate smile. Was Chloe. The caption read, "Seems your husband is comforting the recently distressed." How charitable. The blood drained from my face. It was a setup. It had to be. But the doubt, cold and insidious, slithered in. He was frustrated with you. She's desperate, pretty, and right here. I didn't confront him. I called the head of his security detail. My voice like ice. Find out where Mr. Thorne is right now, and who he's with. Now, 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Ms. Kellerthorne. Mr. Thorne is in his car, returning from a lunch with the Swiss bankers at the grill. He has not been to any bar downtown. The photo appears to be digitally altered. Poorly. The metadata is a mess. Relief, sharp and shameful, washed over me, followed by a colder, harder fury. Diane and Chloe weren't finished. They were just getting more creative. Ethan walked into my office an hour later, his expression grim. My team just showed me the photo. Kate, I would never. I know. I interrupted, my voice tight. It's a child's trick, but it means they're still out there, still trying. The divorce papers are filed. Your father is a broken man. They have nothing left to lose but their malice. He studied me. You're not surprised. I'm done being surprised, I said, opening my desk drawer. I pulled out a small, cloth-bound book. Its cover faded. Lily's journal. I'd finally read it. They want to play with optics? With lies? I handed it to him. My mother kept notes. For years. Observations. Things Diane said when she thought no one was listening. Plans to ease Henry away from that woman's influence. Boasts about hiding money. Details that, in the right context, with a little verification from your people, could paint a very different picture than poor, victimized Diane. It's not a weapon. It's a blueprint for one. Ethan took the journal, his fingers brushing mine. He didn't open it. He just looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw no pity, no concern. I saw the same cold, clarifying light that had been there when we'd planned the Brandt takedown. The light of a partner recognizing a new asset. A blueprint, he repeated, a slow, dangerous smile touching his lips. Good. Then it's time we started building. The gilded cage was tightening, but inside it, the sword was being sharpened. And for the first time, I was eager to see it drawn. The fake photo changed the game. It wasn't a financial attack or a social smear. It was psychological warfare, aimed at the fragile, unspoken thing growing between Ethan and me. The most dangerous weapon they could have chosen. I held Lily's journal like a live wire. The words inside weren't just notes. They were a forensic map of a long con. Ethan watched me, the dangerous glint in his eyes a perfect mirror of the cold resolve settling in my own chest. A blueprint, he repeated. We need to build something they'll walk right into. I opened the journal to a dog-eared page. Listen to this. Lily's entry from, about 15 years ago. Diane on the phone today, laughing, said the key to managing Henry is the Porsche fund. Every time he balks at a bill, she mentions how much his colleagues' new 911 cost. He writes the check, buys the watch, and she squirrels away half. For Chloe's future, she said, and mine. When he bores me, Ethan let out a low whistle. Embezzlement, even in a marriage. That's fraud if she was falsifying documents, which she would have had to do. Exactly. And there are a dozen entries like it. Little boasts, casual cruelties, plans. Lily was a ghost, writing it all down. For me, I think, as proof she wasn't crazy. I closed the book. We can verify the financial trails. Your forensic team can follow the Porsche fund money, but I don't want to just expose it. I want to use it as bait. Set a trap with their own greed. Ethan said, nodding slowly. He leaned forward, the strategist, fully engaged. The photo tells us they're desperate, and they're fixated on me as a target. Chloe wants what you have, or she wants to destroy it, so we give her a clear shot. The Thorne Family Gala for the opening of the pediatric wing is in 2 weeks. I said, the plan crystallizing. Black tie, every society page, photographer will be there. Chloe will try to get in. She'll see it as her last chance to access that world, or to sabotage me in it. We make it easy for her. We ensure she gets an invitation, a compassionate one, from a distant cousin Marcus, might influence. We let her think she's slipping through our defenses. Ethan's smile was thin, and we give her a target, me, looking vulnerable, maybe a public, staged argument between us, a crack in the united front. The thought sent a jolt through me, but I saw the logic. Too obvious, and I don't do theater well. But what if you seem distracted, preoccupied with the final Veritas deal closure, working late, stressed? I play the slightly neglected new wife, preoccupied with the gala details. We're seen less together in the days leading up to it. It creates an opening. Ethan considered it, and at the gala itself, we let her make her move, whatever it is, and we're ready, with cameras of our own, and with a surprise guest. I tapped the journal. We invite my father, alone, after the divorce papers are finalized, but before the settlement. He'll be raw, pliable, and we make sure he's in the room to see whatever performance Chloe and Diane have planned. He's their last pillar of support. Pull him out, and they collapse completely. Ethan looked at me, a new respect in his gaze. You're not just defending anymore. You're conducting a symphony of ruin. I'm finishing what they started. I corrected, but the cold thrill of the plan was undeniable. This was chess, not brawling. We need to verify the journal's financial claims, discreetly, and we need to control the narrative completely. No reporters, no leaks, except the ones we want. Consider it done. He stood. I'll have Claire misplace an extra invitation to the gala where Marcus's assistant will find it. The financial forensics will be quiet and deep. And I'll personally extend an invitation to your father, a peace offering, of sorts. The 2 weeks were masterclass in tension. Ethan and I played our parts perfectly in public. He was buried in the final Veritas negotiations, seen at high-stakes lunches without me. I was a flurry of gala planning meetings, appearing slightly harried, giving brief, strained smiles to the society press. The narrative of pressure on the power couple began to circulate. I saw the hungry gleam in Marcus's eye at a pre-gala committee meeting. He thought his regulatory attack was bearing fruit. Privately, it was different. The late nights were spent side by side, but now we were co-conspirators, not just colleagues. We reviewed the financial trails his team uncovered, shell companies, hidden accounts in the Caymans, all feeding from the slowly bled corpse of Keller Supplies. The evidence was irrefutable. We had the detonator. Henry called me, his voice hollow. Ethan invited me to the gala. Why? Because you're my father. I said, the lie smooth. And it's time to start acting like it. Come alone. See the life I've built. See what protecting the wrong people cost you. A long silence. She took everything. Katie, everything. I know. And on Saturday, you'll see just how much. The night of the gala arrived. The hospital's new atrium was a glittering cavern of glass and hope. I wore a dress of sapphire blue, sleek and impenetrable. Ethan looked like a king in his tuxedo, but the shadows under his eyes were carefully accentuated with a touch of tiredness. Our performance had begun. We worked the room, but separately, the distance between us noticeable. I saw Henry arrive, looking lost and old in a rented tux. He avoided my gaze, finding a corner near the bar. I saw Marcus, holding court, his eyes tracking Ethan with feline satisfaction. And then, I saw her, Chloe. She'd gotten in. She wore a shockingly red dress. Too tight, too bright, a deliberate scream for attention. Diane wasn't with her. This was Chloe's solo mission. Her eyes scanned the room, wild and desperate, finally landing on Ethan, who was standing near a bank of elevators, checking his phone, the picture of a man needing a break from the crowd. This was it. The trap was set. I gave a subtle nod to a waiter, who was actually one of our security team. He unobtrusively began recording on a hidden button camera. Chloe smoothed her dress, tossed her hair, and moved. She weaved through the crowd with a single-minded purpose. I watched, my heart a cold stone in my chest, as she approached Ethan. Ethan? Ethan Thorne. Her voice was pitched to carry, sweet and breathy. Ethan looked up, his expression carefully neutral, slightly puzzled. Yes. Oh, it's so good to see a familiar face, she gushed, placing a hand on his arm. The touch was intimate, proprietary. It's Chloe, Kate's sister. This is all so overwhelming. Chloe said, his tone cool, removing his arm. I wasn't aware you were on the guest list. A friend pulled some strings. I wanted to apologize for everything. Kate, she can be so harsh. You know, we were just trying to help that night, and she just exploded. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper the hidden mic would still catch. I've always admired you, Ethan, from afar, the way you handle all this pressure. Kate doesn't appreciate you. Not really. She's just using you. Everyone knows it. But someone like you deserve real warmth, real admiration. It was a ham-fisted, pathetic attempt at seduction and sabotage. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Ethan took a deliberate step back, creating a visible, public distance. His voice, when it came, was not loud, but it was clear and carried in the sudden lull of conversation around them. I think you're confused. Ms. Keller, my wife appreciates me a great deal. We're partners, in every sense, and the only warmth I'm interested in is the kind that doesn't come with a side of slander and cheap manipulation. Chloe's face flushed crimson. The rebuff was public, humiliating. She floundered. You don't understand. She's not who you think. She's cold. I think, a new, older voice cut through, trembling with rage. That's quite enough. Henry stepped forward from the crowd. He was pale, but his eyes were clear for the first time in years, fixed on Chloe with a look of utter disgust. He'd seen it all, the groveling, the lies, the attempt to destroy what little family he had left. Dad. Chloe squeaked, her performance crumbling into real shock. Don't you dad me. Henry snarled, his voice low and terrible. I got the divorce papers today, and I got something else, a summary from a forensic accountant. The Porsche Fund. Chloe, the Cayman accounts. Your mother has been stealing from me for 15 years, and you knew. You both lived high on it while you treated my daughter like a servant. The crowd was utterly silent now, a ring of shocked, fascinated faces. Chloe's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's lies. Kate's lies. These are bank records. Henry roared, pulling folded papers from his inside pocket and throwing them at her feet. The pages scattered. My own wife. A thief. And you? You're just her greedy shadow. Get out. You and your mother are dead to me. It was the final pillar, crumbling live on stage. Chloe looked from Henry's devastated fury to Ethan's icy contempt to the ring of mocking. Elite faces, the reality of her utter, irreversible ruin dawned. A choked sob escaped her. She turned and fled. The ridiculous red dress a blur of humiliation, pushing through the crowd towards the exit. The silence held for a beat longer. Then, a slow, deliberate clapping started. William Thorne stepped forward, his granite face unreadable. He wasn't clapping for the drama. He was clapping for the execution. An efficient resolution to a messy problem, he said, his eyes on me. You drew the poison and let it drain itself in public. A lesson in leverage and timing. He glanced at Ethan. Your partnership appears to be functional. He walked away, leaving a bubble of intense quiet around Ethan, Henry, and me. Henry looked at me, his eyes brimming with a grief beyond tears. The journal, your mother's. Ethan's man showed me copies. I never knew. I didn't want to see. I know, I said, and for the first time, I felt no anger towards him, only a vast, weary pity. Go home, Dad. The car will take you. We'll talk tomorrow. He nodded, a broken man, and shuffled away. Ethan moved to my side, his presence solid. You were right. He needed to see it. Before I could answer, Marcus materialized, his smirk gone, replaced by a cold, seething anger. The spectacle had derailed whatever petty satisfaction he'd gotten from our supposed strife. A touching family reunion. You certainly know how to clear the room. Just the trash. Marcus, I said, turning to face him fully. It improves the view for everyone. His eyes narrowed. Enjoy the cleanup. Some messes are harder to contain than others. The Veritas deal closes next week. Let's see if your creative restructuring holds up under real pressure. It will, Ethan said, his voice leaving no room for doubt. Because we built it to. Something you'd know about if you spent less time engineering regulatory complaints and more time understanding the businesses you're trying to sabotage. Marcus's face went white. The direct accusation, here, was a declaration of open war. He turned on his heel and left. The gala continued, the music swelling to cover the awkwardness. But the energy had shifted. We were no longer the pressured couple. We were the couple who had publicly eviscerated an enemy and emerged stronger. I felt the calculating, reassessing looks from every corner. Later, in the limo, the silence was different. The static was gone, replaced by a shared, exhausted triumph. You were magnificent, Ethan said quietly, looking at me in the passing streetlights. Cold, precise, and utterly ruthless. It was breathtaking. The way he said it, there was no business in it. It was pure, unvarnished admiration. And it stole the breath from my own lungs. The carefully maintained wall between partnership and something more felt thin, fragile. Your father called it an efficient resolution. I deflected, my voice unsteady. My father recognizes a masterstroke when he sees one. But that's not what I'm talking about. He reached over, his hand covering mine where it lay on the seat between us. His skin was warm, his grip certain. Kate, the contract, the deal, it's paper. What's happening here, between us, isn't. I know it terrifies you. It terrifies me. But I am in love with you, with your mind, your strength, your relentless, brilliant heart. And I am done pretending otherwise. The words hung in the darkened car, more terrifying and more real than any threat from Diane or Marcus. This was the unknown variable. This was the risk that could unravel everything. I looked at our joined hands, at the man who had become my ally, my conspirator, the only person who saw every cracked and calculated piece of me and didn't flinch. The fear was a roar in my ears. But underneath it, for the first time, was a different, quieter sound, a longing I'd armored over for a lifetime. I didn't pull my hand away. I turned it, lacing my fingers through his. I didn't look at him. I looked out at the blur of the city. My fortress, my cage, my battlefield. I don't know how to do this, I whispered, the admission feeling like a surrender and a victory all at once. His thumb stroked the back of my hand. Then we'll figure it out, together, the same way we do everything else. The car pulled up to the penthouse. The gilded cage awaited. But for the first time, walking into it with his hand in mine, it didn't feel like a cage at all. It felt like the one place the war outside couldn't reach. And that was the most dangerous thought of all. The morning after the gala, the world felt different. It wasn't the pale light streaming into the penthouse kitchen, or the familiar skyline. It was the quiet, the constant, low-grade hum of waiting for the other shoe to drop from Diane and Chloe was gone. The silence was profound, and it left space for a new, more complicated noise. The echo of Ethan's words in the dark car. I am in love with you. I stood at the counter, nursing a brutal cup of black coffee, the words replaying in a loop. They weren't a romantic declaration from a movie. They were a statement of fact, delivered like a boardroom assessment. I am in love with you, and my response? A terrified whisper and interlocked fingers. A surrender. A tactical error of monumental proportions. Ethan walked in, already dressed for the day in a suit that cost more than Lily's old annual salary. He moved with the same focused energy, but his eyes, when they met mine, were different, softer, open. It was unnerving. Sleep? He asked, his voice rough. Some. I took another scalding sip. The fallout? Contained. Several society bloggers are running sad. Desperate girl angles on Chloe's stunt. The consensus is she's unwell and you were commendably restrained. Your father's lawyer called mine at dawn. The divorce is uncontested now. He's giving her nothing. The forensic report was persuasive. Good. The word felt hollow. We were talking about the destruction of lives, and all I felt was a sterile sense of a task completed. And the Veritas closure? Friday. All documents are signed. The FTC has been notified of the spin-off. They're standing down. It's done. He came to stand beside me, not touching, but the space between us felt charged. Marcus is furious, which means he's dangerous. I finally looked at him. He's lost the regulatory play. He's lost the social smear. Thanks to last night's spectacle. What's left? The board. My father. Ethan's expression turned grim. William's health is worse than he lets on. The board knows. Succession is no longer a theoretical debate. It's an imminent vote. Marcus is making his final push. He's calling for an emergency board meeting tomorrow. The agenda, leadership stability and long-term vision. It's a no-confidence motion, wrapped in corporate jargon, the familiar adrenaline, cold and sharp, cut through the emotional fog. This was my language. This was the fight I understood. On what grounds? You just saved the Veritas deal. On the grounds that my judgment is compromised by personal entanglements. His gaze was steady on mine. He'll argue that our marriage, the drama surrounding it, is a liability, that I'm distracted, that you're an unpredictable element. He'll use last night as evidence that not of our strength, but of chaos. I set my coffee down. The clink against the marble loud in the quiet room. He'll say the Thorne legacy needs calm. Steady hands. Not a husband cleaning up his wife's messy family. Exactly. And your father? William respects strength, but he fears instability more than anything. Marcus will prey on that fear. He'll have numbers, projections, whispers about how the old guard clients are nervous. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. It's a perception war. And right now, Marcus controls the narrative. Then we change the narrative. I walked to the window, my mind clicking into gear, pushing the terrifying, wonderful revelation of love into a locked compartment labeled for later examination. We don't defend. We attack. We redefine the battlefield. Ethan watched me, a spark returning to his eyes. How? He wants to talk about stability? We give him a master class. We walk into that boardroom and we don't talk about my family. We talk about his. That got his full attention. Marcus's, his, and his allies, the ones whispering about stability. I turned to face him. Your forensic team. They didn't just look at my stepfather's books. Did they? In a company like this, due diligence is a 360-degree sport. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Ethan's face. We have files. On everyone. It's not blackmail. It's risk assessment. I want the assessment on Marcus. His pet projects. His failed ventures the firm quietly bailed out. His cozy relationships with vendors that might not survive an audit. I want every skeleton. Every soft cost. Every time his steady hand cost the firm money or exposed it to risk. My voice was low, intent, and I want the footage from last night. The clear, clean audio of Chloe admitting her mother's theft and her own complicity. Not the salacious part. The confession. To what end? The board won't care about my domestic drama. They'll care about a coordinated attack on the future CEO by a known embezzler and her accomplice. They'll care if we can suggest, subtly, that Marcus might have been aware of it, or at the very least, that he's so blinded by his own ambition that he's willing to leverage criminal activity to score points. I was pacing now, the strategy unfolding. We frame it not as my problem, but as his. Asterisk, he's the one bringing external criminal toxicity into the firm. He's the instability. You and I, we're the cleanup crew, the ones who handle problems efficiently, quietly, and protect the firm's reputation. Ethan was silent for a long moment, his mind racing alongside mine. It's high risk. If we miss, we look paranoid, vindictive. We won't miss. We'll be surgical. We present it as a matter of corporate governance. In light of recent attempts to manipulate the share price and executive stability through external, illicit means, the leadership must demonstrate unity and resilience. We make last night an example of our resilience, and we make Marcus's association with the perpetrators, however tangential, that a question of his judgment. He exhaled, a sound of pure admiration. You're turning his only weapon against him. It's the only move left. I stopped pacing, meeting his gaze, but I need to be in that room. Ethan, not as your wife, as your partner, as the architect of the Veritas solution and the person who neutralized a direct threat to the firm's executive. They need to see me as an asset, not a liability. They need to hear it from me. He didn't hesitate. Done. And, I added, the final piece clicking into place. We need your father, not just his vote, his public, unequivocal endorsement. Before the meeting, Ethan's smile faded. That's the one variable I can't control. William doesn't give endorsements. He observes, and he chooses the winner. Then we make it impossible for him to choose anyone else. The meeting with William Thorne took place in his private study at the family estate, a room that smelled of leather, old paper, and absolute power. He looked frail, propped in a high-back chair, but his eyes were the same pale, penetrating ice. Marcus has the votes of Sterling, Jacobs, and possibly Chin, William said without preamble, sipping water. He's arguing that the last month has shown a pattern of volatility around the leadership, the wedding spectacle, as he calls it, the regulatory near miss with Veritas, the public feud. He claims it's shaken confidence. Confidence is up 3 points since the Veritas restructuring was announced. I said, standing beside Ethan's chair. I hadn't been offered a seat. The stock hit a year high this morning. The feud, as you saw, was the eradication of a criminal element attempting to extort and sabotage a senior executive. That's not volatility. That's crisis management. And we succeeded. William's gaze slid to me. You speak of we quite comfortably for someone who has been here less than a year. I speak of the partnership you observed at the gala. I countered, refusing to be cowed. The one that identified a threat, allowed it to expose itself, and eliminated it with minimal collateral damage to the firm's reputation. In fact, one could argue it enhanced the reputation. It demonstrated that Thorn leadership cannot be bullied or manipulated. It demonstrated drama. William rasped. Controlled drama. Ethan interjected, his voice calm. A surgical strike. The alternative was letting a toxic situation fester. Kate identified the root of the problem, financial corruption and personal malice, and devised a strategy to remove it. The same strategic thinking she applied to Veritas. She doesn't create problems, sir. She solves them. Permanently. William was silent, his fingers steepled. Marcus claims your judgment is clouded, that this partnership is emotional, detrimental. I felt Ethan tense beside me. This was the crux. I took a half step forward. Mr. Thorne, with respect, what is the foundation of this firm if not profitable partnerships? You partner with companies, with investors, with talent. You assess their value, their risk, and their potential return. You entered a partnership with my husband for the stability and control of the trust. Has that partnership delivered? His eyes narrowed. It has. Has the partnership between Ethan and myself delivered? The Veritas deal, saved and improved, a direct threat to executive function, neutralized. My quantitative analysis has identified over $47 million in unrealized value in the Asian funds Marcus oversees. Value he's missed due to a risk-averse, outdated model. I have the briefing memo here. I placed a single sheet of paper on the edge of his desk. That's not emotion. That's mathematics. Marcus is afraid of the math because it proves he's obsolete. He's attacking the volatility of our partnership because he can't attack its results. The room was so quiet I could hear the old man's labored breathing. He looked from me to Ethan, then back to the memo. He didn't pick it up. You're asking me to back you in a civil war. He said finally, I'm asking you to back the future of your company. I said, Ethan has the vision. I have the operational ruthlessness to execute it. Together, we're not just stable, we're formidable. Marcus offers stagnation wrapped in tradition. We offer evolution. The numbers are on our side. The only question is whether you have the stomach for the fight. A long, tense minute passed. Then, William Thorne did something extraordinary. He let out a dry, wheezing sound that was almost a laugh. Operational ruthlessness. I like that. He picked up the memo, scanned it with faded eyes that missed nothing. Chin is a pragmatist. He follows the money. Show him this. Sterling is old world, scared of change. Remind him that Marcus's father lost the family of fortune in the '08 crash by being too cautious. Jacobs. He shrugged. Jacobs hates Marcus. He just needs permission. He set the paper down and looked at Ethan. You have my vote, and you have my voice, but you'll walk into that boardroom alone. The throne is never handed over. It's taken. If you're the future, I think you are, you'll take it, and you, he said, shifting his gaze to me, you'll be standing beside him when he does, or you'll be the first thing they tear down. Understood? Perfectly, I said. The boardroom of Thorne Company was a temple of money and power. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, gleaming off the obsidian table. 10 faces, mostly older, mostly male, watched as Ethan and I entered. I didn't sit in one of the plush chairs. I took a position at the head of the room, beside the digital display. A silent statement. Marcus opened the proceedings, his voice dripping with concerned gravitas. He spoke of legacy, of stability, of the perils of personality-driven leadership. He painted a picture of Ethan as brilliant but impulsive, now dangerously yoked to an unknown quantity. Me, who brought personal baggage and public theatrics into the sacred halls of the firm. It was well delivered. I saw nods. frowns of consideration. When he finished, Ethan stood. He didn't raise his voice. Thank you, Marcus, for your colorful assessment. Since we're discussing stability and vision, let's start with the facts. He nodded to me. I clicked the remote. The screen lit up not with the footage of Chloe, but with a graph. This, I said, my voice clear and cool in the hushed room, is the performance of the Asian Venture Fund, overseen by Marcus, versus the SP benchmark over the last 5 years. As you can see, consistent underperformance, a legacy of what Marcus calls stability. I call a failure to capture emerging market trends, resulting in an estimated $47 million in lost opportunity. I clicked again. A list of failed internal projects Marcus had championed appeared. These are steady-hand initiatives. Their combined write-down cost the firm $28 million. Marcus spluttered. Out of context, conservative strategy in volatile regions is why we have a competitive disadvantage in Asia. I cut him off. Stability isn't a strategy. It's an excuse for stagnation. I clicked again. Now, the clean, elegant architecture of the new Veritas deal appeared. This is evolution. This is addressing a regulatory threat, not by fighting it, but by innovating beyond it, creating a new industry standard and saving $1 billion acquisition in the process. That is the vision Ethan Thorne delivers. Not stability, growth. I had their attention now. The language of money was universal. Marcus, red-faced, shot back. Growth at what cost? The circus surrounding your personal life? The distraction? We're a family firm, not a tabloid. I clicked the remote one last time. The screen split. On one side, the financial trails from Diane's Porsche fund, diagrams of shell companies and Cayman accounts. On the other, a frozen image from last night's footage. Chloe, her face twisted in malice. The circus, as you call it, I said, my voice dropping, was a targeted, criminal attempt to undermine this firm's CEO through extortion and character assassination. The individual you see here, Chloe Keller, along with her mother, Diane Keller, are currently under investigation for embezzlement and fraud. They specifically targeted Ethan Thorne because he represents the future, the change that threatens old, corrupt systems. I paused, letting my gaze sweep the room, landing briefly on Marcus. The question for this board isn't whether our leadership attracts attacks. It's whether our leadership is strong enough to defeat them. We did, efficiently, quietly, and we protected this firm's reputation in the process. The only distraction here is the one being manufactured by those who fear being left behind by the very progress that will secure Thorne Company's future. I stopped talking. The silence was absolute. Then, from the speakerphone in the center of the table, William Thorne's frail but unmistakable voice crackled. I've heard enough. The motion for a vote of no confidence is childish. We have work to do. I move we adjourn and discuss the Q4 expansion targets in Singapore. Catherine, you'll lead that briefing. Your analysis seems to be the only one with any sharp teeth. It was over, not with a bang, but with a weary, definitive dismissal from the king. The board members shuffled papers, avoiding Marcus's livid stare. The coup had been crushed. Later, in Ethan's office, the door closed against the world. The adrenaline finally bled away, leaving me trembling. Ethan didn't say a word. He just pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly as the shakes subsided. It wasn't a romantic embrace. It was the clutch of two soldiers who'd just survived a hail of gunfire. You were, he breathed into my hair. You were magnificent, a queen, a goddess of war. I leaned into him, letting the solid reality of him ground me. It was just a presentation. He pulled back, holding my face in his hands, his eyes blazing. It was a coronation. He kissed me then, not like the tentative touch in the car, but with a desperate, claiming intensity that wiped every calculation, every strategy from my mind. It was all heat and need, and a victory so sweet it hurt. When we broke apart, both breathless, the world had rearranged itself. The lines were gone, burned away in the fire of the fight we just won together. The contract, I whispered, my forehead against his. To hell with the contract, he murmured, his lips tracing my jaw. This is the only deal that matters now. And for the first time, in the quiet aftermath of the war we'd won, I believed him. The gilded cage was gone. In its place was a throne we'd seized together, and the view from it was terrifying and exhilarating and utterly, completely ours. A year is a lifetime in the world we'd conquered. The throne room of Thorne Company no longer felt like borrowed space. The plaque on the door now read, Catherine Keller Thorne, Chief Executive Officer, Thorne Strategic Group. My domain, Ethan's, was the larger, adjoining office, the one that bore the simple, formidable title, Chairman CEO. The contract, the original 3-year deal, had expired 3 months ago. The paper was in a safety deposit box, a museum piece. We'd never filed for divorce. We'd never spoken of it. The marriage, the real one that had grown in the space between the lines of that contract, was the foundation of everything now. It was a different kind of deal, one without clauses or expiration dates, one that was renegotiated every day, over coffee, in shared glances during board meetings, in the quiet exhaustion of late nights. The war with Marcus was over, ended not with a bang, but a buyout, faced with irrelevance and a board that now viewed him as a costly relic. He'd taken a generous and mandatory early retirement package. The old guard clients, it turned out, were far more nervous about missing the next wave of profit than they were about my family history. The numbers, as I'd promised, spoke for themselves. My phone buzzed on the desk, pulling me from a report. Not the work line, my private line. The ID read, Dad. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Henry, Katie. His voice was clearer than it had been in years, but aged, subdued. I'm in town for a checkup. I wondered if you might have time for a coffee. There was no demand, no self-pity, just a quiet, tentative question. The ghost of the man he'd been, the one who'd chosen the easy path, was gone. In his place was someone who'd faced the abyss of his own making and was trying, haltingly, to build a new path on the other side. The usual place? In 20 minutes? I asked. The usual place was a quiet cafe near his modest condo in Brooklyn, the one I'd helped secure for him after the divorce. He worked as a consultant for the small, reputable packaging firm I'd steered the Thorne contract to. It was a humble life, but it was his, and it was clean. I'll be there, he said, the relief in his voice palpable. He was already seated, 2 black coffees on the table. When I arrived, he looked older, the lines on his face etched by regret rather than ambition. He stood as I approached, a gesture that felt foreign. Katie, thank you for coming. Of course. I Saturday, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile. It was a space between 2 people who shared a past, but had to build a new present from the rubble. The doctor says I'm fine. For my age. He offered a weak smile. How's Lily? She's good. Teaching a watercolor class at the community center. She's surprisingly good at it. Sends her regards. It was a small kindness, and mostly true. Lily's anger towards him had cooled into a distant pity. She was too busy living her new, secure life to hate. He nodded, staring into his coffee. I got the papers. Final. From Diane. She's moving to Arizona. With some cousin. Chloe went with her. He looked up, his eyes haunted. I heard from an old friend. They're not doing well. The money's gone. Chloe works at a big box store. Diane isn't adjusting. I felt nothing. No schadenfreude. No pity. It was a report on the status of a contained environmental hazard. I'm aware. My security team's periodic updates were brief and clinical. They were no longer a threat, just a footnote. I wanted to say he began, then faltered. I know it's too late. I know sorry is a worthless word, but I am. For every moment I didn't see you. For every time I chose the easy silence. I failed you. In every way a father can fail a child. The words hung in the air between us. I'd waited a lifetime to hear them. Now that they were here, they didn't heal anything. They just were. A fact. An acknowledgement. You did, I said, my voice quiet but steady. And I built a life in spite of it. Because of it. Maybe. I don't forgive you because it makes me feel better. I accept your apology because carrying the anger any longer is inefficient. It's a tax on my energy. And I have a multinational corporation to run. A faint, sad smile touched his lips. Always practical. It's the only way I know how to be. I took a sip. We can have coffee. Henry, occasionally, you can know about my life. From a distance. But we will never be the father and daughter you could have been. That ship sank a long time ago. This is what's left. If it's enough for you, it's enough for me. He swallowed, his eyes glistening, but he didn't break down. He just nodded, a man accepting the terms of a modest but vital peace treaty. It's more than I deserve. Thank you. We finished our coffee talking about neutral things, the unseasonable warmth. A new restaurant. It was stilted, but it was a start. A new, quiet chapter with very low expectations. As I stood to leave, he spoke again. He's a good man. Ethan, I see the way he looks at you, like you hung the moon. I paused. He is. And I look at him the same way. We built that, too. I left him there, in the sunlit cafe, a solitary figure making his slow, careful way in the world. The past was settled. The balance sheet was closed. That evening, the penthouse was filled with the scent of Lily's cooking. She came over every Thursday, a tradition. She and Ethan were in the kitchen, arguing good-naturedly about the correct amount of rosemary in a pan sauce. The scene was so profoundly normal it sometimes stole my breath. Mom, he's a Philistine when it comes to herbs. You'll never win, I said, shrugging out of my blazer. I have a refined palate, Ethan protested, stealing a piece of carrot from the cutting board. I just believe in subtlety. Subtlety is for people who are afraid of flavor. Lily shot back, waving her spoon at him. The easy affection between them was a miracle I still couldn't quite believe. Over dinner, Lily updated us on her art class, her plans to visit a friend in Maine. Her life was full, peaceful, and entirely her own. The fear in her eyes was gone, replaced by a warm, steady light. Later, after Lily had left with a hug and a container of leftovers, Ethan and I sat on the terrace. The city sprawled below us, a galaxy of ambition and struggle we now surveyed from a place of hard-won security. Your father? Ethan asked, his arm around my shoulders. Coffee, an apology, a new, very distant understanding. I leaned into him. It's done. All of it. And the Arizona report? Living their consequences. Their ghosts. He was silent for a moment. The board meeting today. The vote on the Singapore expansion. You were ferocious. In the best way. Chin looked like he wanted to both applaud and hide under the table. It's a good deal. The numbers are irrefutable. I know. But it's not just the numbers anymore. Is it? He turned to face me, his expression serious in the dim light. You love it. The fight. The game. The building of something. Just like I do. I met his gaze. I do. And us? The question was quiet, but it carried the weight of the year, of the battlefields we'd crossed. Where does us fit in the blueprint now? Kate, the one that's always been about the next target, the next peak. I'd asked myself the same question 1,000 times. The relentless drive that had gotten me here hadn't vanished. The ambition was a fire in my bones, but it was no longer a solitary fire. It was a forge we shared. I have a new target, I said, my voice firm. Oh, a flicker of curiosity, and something like concern in his eyes. Another company, A market? No. I took his hand, lacing my fingers through his. The target is a lifetime, a complicated, messy, brilliant lifetime, with a partner who's as relentless and ruthless and brilliant as I am. One who doesn't want to slow me down, but to run beside me, maybe even ahead sometimes, just to keep me sharp. I took a breath. Speaking the truth I'd been building towards. The experiment, Ethan, the one without a contract. I'm all in. I can't promise it will be easy, or that I'll ever be a woman who chooses a quiet night over a hostile takeover. But I can promise you my absolute loyalty, my unbreakable partnership, and the word was still new, still terrifying, and my love, such as it is. It's not soft, it's not simple, it's the most powerful ally you'll ever have. The look on his face was worth every battle, every scar, every moment of doubt. It was a sunrise of pure, unguarded joy. He didn't speak. He pulled me to him and kissed me. A kiss that was a vow, a seal, a promise of wars to come and a peace to be found only in each other. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine. An alliance, he murmured, the word rich with new meaning. For life, no terms, no exits, just forward, together, together. I agreed. Below us, the city of ambition glittered, a kingdom we'd carved a piece of for ourselves. The gilded cage was a memory. The throne was ours. And the future, for the first time, wasn't a plan to be executed or an enemy to be crushed. It was an unwritten vow, a blank contract waiting to be filled with the only thing that had ever truly mattered. The story we would write, side by side, as equals. It was the ultimate merger, and we were just getting started.